Wow, you've really sent over quite a collection this time, huh? A whole YouTube channel dedicated to the global competition for design for future education.
It's gcd4fe.
gcd4fe.
Fetchy.
I'm excited to dive into these. So
Yeah.
design thinking, revolutionizing learning, all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
But the UN Secretary General keeps bringing up this learning crisis. I mean,
Yeah.
where do we even begin?
Yeah, no, he's not sugarcoating it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We really are facing this massive global need for, quality education,
Especially for girls.
especially when it comes to girls' access to education. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a huge problem.
And that makes, what is it, Sustainable Development Goal 4?
Yeah, SDG4.
SDG4, yep. Inclusive and equitable quality education
Mm-hmm.
and lifelong learning for all. I mean, that's ambitious.
Yeah.
Do these videos suggest design thinking can actually help achieve that?
They seem to think so, yeah. But to really get how it helps to look back, like how did we get to this point? The shift from those old dual track education systems to the single track and branch systems we see more now. Oh, right. I remember learning about that. So instead of like forcing kids into either academic or vocational tracks early on, it's more about recognizing that talents are diverse. Everyone deserves a chance to kind of blossom.
Exactly. And it's this focus on equity and personalized learning, right, that leads to what these videos call smart education.
Smart education.
Adaptable, sensible. The goal is a more harmonious learning experience.
Okay, that sounds lovely in theory, but do the videos give any real-world examples of what smart education actually looks like?
They do. One they highlight is Stanford University's concept of the open loop university. It challenges the traditional model with things like paced education, tailored to the individual, more collaborative learning spaces, and assessments that go beyond standardized tests.
It's a far cry from those massive lecture halls, huh?
Yeah, and what's really interesting is this idea of mission-driven learning, like connecting what you study to real-world purpose and impact. Okay, now that's something I can get behind. But let's back up for a second and talk about design thinking. The videos are all about it, right? But is it really more than just making things look pretty?
Oh, it's way more than just aesthetics. Design thinking is really about problem solving at its core, creating solutions that are both functional and user-friendly. And the videos actually trace the evolution of design. Like, back in the Renaissance, the focus was purely on functionality. But then in the information age, form and aesthetics, user experience, they all became essential too.
So it's gone from it works to it works, it looks good, and people actually enjoy using it.
Exactly. And as design evolved, different schools of thought popped up about what design really is. The videos mention three main theories: design for meaning, design as a creative activity, and design as a process.
Okay, so different ways of looking at the same concept. But what are the common threads? What defines design thinking regardless of the theory?
Well, even with those different perspectives, there are some key characteristics that pretty much always define design. It's human-centered, first and foremost, always considering the people who will be interacting with the product, service, or system. It results in tangible outputs, too, like a physical object, a digital interface, a streamlined process, something concrete. And of course, it needs that element of innovation, creativity, thinking outside the box to solve problems in new and effective ways.
So understanding people, creating practical solutions, and of course still that element of artistry to elevate design beyond pure function. The videos mention a few design masters: Kenya Hara, Paul Rand, Dieter Rams. Are they saying these masters' principles can be applied to education?
Absolutely. Rams, for instance, laid out 10 principles of good design. And one of them that really stands out is good design is innovative. Think about how that applies to education. It means constantly looking for better ways to engage students to create more dynamic and effective learning experiences.
So not settling for the status quo. That's a good principle for anything, really. But how do we translate these lofty ideals into concrete actions? The videos talk about specific design thinking models, right?
They do. They focus on two big ones: IDEO's design thinking model and the EDPT model developed at Stanford's D School. Both are very human-centered, but break the design process down into slightly different stages.
I'm more interested in seeing these models in action than just the theory. Do the videos show how they're actually being used?
They do. For example, they highlight IDEO's work with Amtrak, redesigning the entire Acela train experience. It wasn't just about the train itself, but the whole user journey, from buying tickets to reaching your destination.
So, looking at the big picture.
Exactly. And it paid off. Amtrak saw increased ridership, and what's more important, passengers had a much more enjoyable experience.
Tangible results, I like it.
Ah.
Were there any other examples?
They also talked about IDEO's collaboration with Innova schools in Peru. They had to build an entirely new school system from scratch, tackling very specific challenges.
Wow, a whole school system. That's a bit more ambitious than a train redesign.
It shows how adaptable this design thinking approach can be. And it's not just these large-scale projects. The videos also show the Stanford D School's K-12 design thinking project, bringing those principles into everyday classrooms.
So teachers are using design thinking to create more engaging lessons.
Exactly. That's where tools like user journey maps, empathy maps, prototyping come in. It's about understanding needs, brainstorming ideas, testing solutions.
Putting theory into practice. And speaking of practice, the videos got into how these models are used in different areas of education, right?
Yes. They focused on three key areas: instructional design, design-based learning, and then learning space design.
Okay, reimagining the classroom. That one definitely piques my interest. But first, instructional design. How's design thinking changing that?
It's all about creating those engaging and effective learning experiences that are tailored to, the individual learner's needs. It's the architecture of the lesson, the course. Models like ADDIE, Dick and Carrie Kemp, those all come into play here.
Those sound like characters from a detective novel.
Maybe, but they're really helpful for structuring the learning process. And one of the most interesting examples the videos show is this intelligent VR system designed for teaching people how to make coffee.
Wait, learning to make coffee in virtual reality. That's a long way from the old home economics classes.
It is, but it shows how technology, when combined with the design thinking, can create a more engaging and effective learning experience.
Okay, I have to admit, that one sounds pretty cool. What about this design-based learning they talked about? How is that different from instructional design?
So design-based learning takes those design thinking principles and makes them the core of the learning experience. Students actually become designers themselves, tackling real-world problems and coming up with solutions in a hands-on way.
So less about absorbing information, more about applying it.
Exactly. And it's got a rich history. Pioneers like Dory Nelson and Janet Kolodner were really influential in shaping this approach. It's not just about the final product, but developing that critical thinking, collaboration, creative mindset in students.
I see how it ties back into that mission-driven learning we were talking about earlier, connecting learning to real-world goals. Do they give any examples of this in action?
Yeah, one they highlighted is the San Andres Timilpan project. The challenge they gave students was figure out how to survive in a new, undeveloped area.
Talk about a high-stakes assignment.
Right. It really embodies that learning by doing aspect of design thinking. Students weren't just sitting there taking notes. They had to actually use their knowledge to solve a real, even if simulated, problem.
Now I'm thinking about the space where learning actually happens. We've talked about those huge lecture halls, virtual reality coffee shops. But what is learning space design all about?
It's about challenging that traditional idea of what a classroom is, looking at the potential of different learning environments, formal and informal, even virtual. The videos actually show some really innovative examples.
Okay, let's hear them.
There's the Vittra Telefonplan school in Sweden. They got rid of traditional classrooms completely and went with open learning spaces and something they call workshop classrooms. Flexibility, collaboration, fostering creativity, that's the focus.
No more rows of desks then. Any other cool spaces they mentioned?
They also talk about ED's two-story campus, which has this flexible design with an open studio specifically for senior students. Then there's the library at Chicago's Francis W. Parker School. They completely transformed it from that classic quiet library into this lively learning commons.
Libraries are getting quite the makeover these days, so it's all about creating these dynamic spaces, not just for quiet study, but for active, collaborative learning.
Exactly. And these designs are based on frameworks like Ken Fisher's pedagogical activity model and David Radcliffe's PSD framework, which highlight how teaching methods, the physical space, and technology all work together.
So how we teach, where we learn, and the tools we use, it's all connected. But we've been talking a lot about expert opinions and theories. What do students actually think about all this? How do they see the learning crisis and the future of education?
The videos actually share some great insights from student forums at the Global Smart Education Conference. It's really interesting to hear the perspectives of students from all over the world.
I bet. Are they just complaining about the problems, or are they offering solutions too?
They're definitely solution-oriented. One suggestion was using metaverse applications for teacher training to break down some of those identity barriers in online learning. Another student talked about creating immersive classrooms specifically for special education to promote equity and
This
inclusion.
is really outside the box thinking there.
Mhm.
Anything else that stood out?
There were some students advocating for design thinking projects, specifically in rural communities, using those local resources for creativity and innovation, and then this really cool concept of developing hybrid learning communities for special needs children, promoting inclusion through, community empowerment.
It's inspiring to see these students not just identifying problems, but imagining solutions, coming up with ways to improve education for everyone.
It speaks to those core values of design thinking, putting people first, creating solutions that are accessible and beneficial for everyone.
Speaking of engaging learning experiences, the next topic these videos explore is gamification.
Yeah.
That one definitely caught my eye.
It's a fascinating area, and the videos break down all the different types of educational games out there, from simple mini games to those complex simulations. And they show some really successful examples like Minecraft Education, Motion Math, River City. There's even this one called Games to Teach, which integrates actual MIT course content into game format.
Wait, playing Minecraft for school credit. Sign me up.
It's not just about fun and games, though. These educational games are carefully crafted to, teach specific concepts, build skills, and foster that love of learning. The videos highlight three main values: game motivation, game fiction thinking, and then game spirit.
Okay, unpack those for me. What do those values actually look like in practice?
So game motivation is all about keeping players engaged and wanting to learn more. Game fiction thinking is about encouraging them to be creative, imagine themselves within the game world. And game spirit is about fostering that collaboration, that problem solving, that sense of community.
It sounds like a recipe for a truly immersive and engaging learning experience.
It can be, for sure.
But what about STEAM education? How does that fit into all of this?
STEAM education is really a natural progression from the traditional STEM fields, recognizing that art and humanities are just as important as science, technology, engineering, and math. It's about, developing well-rounded individuals who are not only technically skilled, but also creative and critical thinkers.
And the videos mention that China is particularly active in implementing STEAM education.
Yeah,
What's driving that?
it's part of their national strategy to, boost innovation and create a generation equipped to tackle the challenges of the 21st century.
Makes sense.
The videos go into the interdisciplinary nature of STEAM, its focus on solving real-world problems, and how it aligns with the national science education standards in both China and the U.S., actually.
So it's not just about memorizing facts. It's about being able to apply knowledge across disciplines to solve real-world problems. How are they implementing that in practice?
The videos highlight some interesting models. The 6E Learning by Design model, for example, guides students through 6 stages of, active learning. There's also the D Schools Redesigning Water, Energy, and Shelter project, which challenges students to use design thinking to address those big, critical global issues.
It's about giving students the tools and the opportunities to really make a difference. But with all these developments, all these changes in education, what are those essential design skills that students will need to thrive in this rapidly evolving world?
The videos really highlight the importance of visual design and communication. They introduce Robin Williams' 4 basic principles of visual design: proximity, alignment, repetition, and contrast.
Ah, yes. I remember those from my graphic design class back in the day.
Right.
But are those principles really relevant beyond, creating posters and websites?
Absolutely. Think about crafting compelling presentations or organizing information in a clear, engaging way. In today's world where we're bombarded with visual information constantly, these skills are more important than ever.
So it's about communicating effectively no matter what the medium. Did they talk about any other aspects of visual design?
They briefly touched on the color wheel and its application in visual design, and also introduced the minimalist design philosophy. Less is more.
Ah, minimalism. I love it. Clean lines, simple palettes, focusing on functionality.
Yeah.
Brands like Muji and Apple really exemplify that approach, don't they?
They do. And you can apply those same principles to create learning experiences that are visually appealing, easy to navigate, and free from unnecessary distractions.
Cut through the clutter and focus on what matters.
Yeah.
But visual design is just one piece of the communication puzzle. The videos emphasize public speaking skills too,
They
right?
did, because even the most brilliant idea is useless if you can't communicate it effectively. They talk about this guy, Peter Myers, who breaks down effective speaking into three key components: content, style, and state.
Content, style, and state. Okay,
Yeah.
break those down for me.
So content is pretty straightforward. It's what you say. Style is how you say it. And then state refers to your mindset, your emotional presence as a speaker. Are you confident, passionate, engaging? Your state can really make or break how your message is received.
So it's not just what you say, but how you say it and the energy you bring to the table.
Ex-
What kind of practical tips did they offer for improving those public speaking skills?
They talked about incorporating storytelling, using metaphors to make complex ideas more relatable, using vivid language, repeating key points strategically for emphasis, and, of course, encouraging audience interaction to keep people engaged.
Turning a presentation into a conversation, making it a more dynamic experience.
Exactly. And it all boils down to empowering students to be confident communicators, so they can share their ideas and really make a difference in the world.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. The learning crisis, design thinking models, innovative learning spaces, the power of games, the rise of STEAM education, those essential communication skills. It's clear that the future of learning is being shaped by so many different factors.
So many factors, yeah.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring how technology is playing an increasingly important role in this transformation.
I'm ready to delve deeper into the digital side of things.
Get ready for smart education, the digital transformation of education, and the rise of AI in learning.
Sounds like a fascinating journey ahead. Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into the future of learning.
It seems like technology is becoming more and more intertwined with the future of education.
It really does. And those videos you sent, they really dig into some of those big ideas like smart education and this whole digital transformation of learning.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot to process.
It is a lot, and I think, honestly, the speed at which technology is changing can feel a bit overwhelming,
Yeah.
even for those of us who are, pretty plugged in.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, technology is a tool, right?
It is, yeah.
It's about how we choose to use it, not just the fact that it exists. Speaking of which, what about this whole concept of smart education? Is it really just about having fancy gadgets and robots in every classroom?
Not at all. It's much more, I think, nuanced than that. Smart education is about using technology in a really strategic way to personalize learning, improve teaching, and ultimately create an education system that's more equitable and, well, just more effective.
The videos mention that smart education should be sensible, adaptable, caring, equitable, and harmonious. Those are some lovely words.
Yeah.
But how do those translate to the real world? How do you measure something like harmonious in an educational setting?
It's about remembering that technology should serve a purpose. It shouldn't be about replacing teachers or turning classrooms into, these playgrounds for tech just for the sake of it. It's about being really thoughtful in how we use it.
So finding that sweet spot where tech complements the human element, not overshadows it. I like that.
Right.
And the videos also talk about smart learning environments, but what does that actually look like? Give me a picture.
Okay, imagine e-textbooks that actually adapt to your individual learning style. VR experiences that let you step back in time, or, I don't know, explore the human body from the inside out. Or online platforms that connect students and teachers from all over the world.
So it's almost like breaking down the walls of the traditional classroom.
It is, yeah. Those lines between physical and digital spaces are blurring, creating these learning experiences that are much more seamless and personalized. And the videos actually dig into some of the key aspects of smart learning environments, like tracking learning progress, recognizing different learning scenarios, understanding the importance of the physical environment. They even talk about connecting learning communities in new ways.
So using technology to gather data, analyze it, and create personalized learning pathways that help students succeed.
Exactly. And it's not just for students either. Smart learning environments can give teachers those real-time insights into student progress so they can adjust their teaching and provide more targeted support.
That sounds pretty powerful. It's almost like a feedback loop, constantly working to personalize learning and make education more responsive to students' needs.
Yeah. And while the technology is a big piece of this, these videos also highlight that new teaching models are emerging as well, right alongside these technological advancements.
Okay, so what kind of new models are they talking about?
Well, we're seeing this shift away from those traditional, lecture-based formats and towards approaches that are more active, student-centered. Things like flipped classrooms, where students learn content online before coming to class for more interactive discussions and activities. Or the design-based learning we talked about in the last part, where they're tackling real-world problems through that design thinking process.
So it's less about passively absorbing information and more about actively applying it,
Yeah.
engaging with it.
Exactly. These new models put more emphasis on critical thinking, collaboration, problem solving, creativity, all of those skills that are really essential for success, not just in school, but in life.
At-
And of course, technology plays a key role in facilitating these new models. Online platforms can be used to deliver content for flipped classrooms, and VR simulations can create really immersive experiences for design-based learning projects. Technology gives teachers the tools they need to make these new models even more engaging and effective.
The videos also mention flexible pedagogy, though. Does that just mean students get to decide whether they want to attend class in their pajamas?
Huh. Well, there might be some of that.
Yeah.
But it's more about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to learning, right? Some students do great in a traditional classroom setting, others learn best online or through project-based learning. Flexible pedagogy is about creating that learning ecosystem that can accommodate all of these different needs and preferences.
So providing choices and empowering students to take ownership of how they learn.
Exactly. And technology can be really helpful in supporting that flexibility too. Think about online learning management systems, video conferencing tools, mobile learning apps. These all allow students to learn at their own pace, wherever and whenever it works best for them.
Breaking down barriers of time and location and making learning more accessible.
Exactly. And the videos even touch on this concept called OMO learning, which blends online and offline experiences in real time. It might sound a bit futuristic, but it's already happening.
FOMO learning. Okay, now that one sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Maybe, but it's about creating those seamless transitions between physical and digital spaces. So no matter where they are, students can learn and collaborate effectively.
So it's taking the best of both worlds and bringing them together. The human connection of a physical classroom with the flexibility and accessibility of online learning.
Exactly. And it really shows how technology, when used thoughtfully, can enhance the learning experience. But that's not all these videos cover. They also get into the rise of generative AI and what it means for education.
Okay, now AI and education. That definitely sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It might have seemed like science fiction a few years ago, but AI is quickly becoming a reality in classrooms around the world.
So what does AI in education look like in practice? Are we talking about robot teachers replacing human educators?
Not quite. The videos break it down into a few key areas. First, there's AI's potential to transform education management and delivery. Think about things like AI systems that help schools with admissions, scheduling, attendance, even identifying students who might be struggling.
So AI as the ultimate administrative assistant, freeing up teachers to actually teach and support their students.
Exactly. And then there's AI's role in learning and assessment. This is where it gets really exciting. Imagine intelligent tutoring systems that adapt to each student's learning style, automated writing evaluation tools that provide personalized feedback, even educational robots that can interact with students and provide support.
It's like having a personal tutor and learning companion all rolled into one.
In a way, yeah. AI can provide truly personalized instruction, tailored to each student's individual needs and pace. It can offer real-time feedback and support to help them stay on track.
The videos even showed some AI-powered tools that are already being used, like Duolingo for language learning, Khan Academy for math and science. Even those big online learning platforms like Coursera and edX are using AI to enhance their courses.
And those are just a few examples. As AI technology keeps advancing, we can expect to see even more innovative learning tools being developed in the next few years.
But with all this talk about AI, I can't help but wonder, will robots eventually replace teachers altogether?
That's the question everyone's asking. But the videos seem to think that AI is more likely to augment teachers' capabilities, not replace them entirely.
So it's a collaboration, not a competition.
Exactly. Think about it this way. AI can handle those more routine tasks, like grading or delivering some basic instruction. This frees up teachers to focus on the things that AI can't do, like building relationships with their students, fostering critical thinking and creativity, providing emotional support, and, just being that human connection in the classroom.
Right, so it's about leveraging the strengths of both, working together to create a richer, more effective learning environment.
Exactly.
But the videos also touched on how AI can be used to support lifelong learning, which is becoming more and more important in today's world.
Absolutely. AI can personalize learning pathways, recommend courses and resources, even track your progress over time. It can help people stay ahead of the curve and adapt to new challenges throughout their lives.
It's like having a personalized learning coach, available whenever you need it. But I do have to ask, with all these potential benefits of AI in education, are there any downsides, any risks we should be thinking about?
That's a really important question. It's crucial to consider both the potential benefits and the potential risks of any new technology.
So what are some of the concerns that people have raised about AI in education?
One big one is data privacy. As AI systems collect more and more data about students, we need to make absolutely sure that this data is handled responsibly and ethically, protecting student privacy and preventing any misuse.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that AI is used to support students, not exploit them.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of algorithmic bias. AI algorithms are trained on data, right? And if that data reflects existing biases in society, well, the algorithms can perpetuate those biases and potentially lead to outcomes that are unfair or even discriminatory.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the values and assumptions that are baked into its design. We have to be very careful about the data that's used to train AI systems and make sure it's diverse and representative.
Precisely. It's crucial to make sure these systems promote fairness and equity for every learner.
Those are definitely important considerations. Are there any other concerns that have been raised?
Some people worry that AI could actually worsen existing inequalities in education if it's not implemented really carefully and thoughtfully. Like, if only students in wealthy schools have access to these AI-powered learning tools, it could widen the achievement gap between them and students in under-resourced schools.
So access and equity are key. It's not enough to just develop the technology. We have to make sure everyone has equal access to it.
Exactly. AI should be used to level the playing field, not create new barriers.
So how do we address these concerns and ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly in education?
It starts with having open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and the potential risks. We need to bring educators, policymakers, researchers, and developers together to establish guidelines and best practices that put learners first.
So collaboration and transparency are key.
Absolutely. And we also need to empower students to be critical thinkers about AI, give them the skills and knowledge they need to understand how AI works, identify potential biases, and advocate for its ethical use.
Prepare them to be informed citizens in this AI-driven world, both beneficiaries of the technology and also responsible stewards of it.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the heart of what these videos are saying. Technology is a tool, and it's our responsibility to use it wisely and ethically to create a better world.
It's a good reminder that the future of education isn't about choosing between technology and human interaction, but finding the right balance between the two.
I couldn't agree more. We need to create a future where technology enhances human connection, not replaces it.
Well, we've explored a lot in this part. Smart education, the digital transformation of learning, the rise of AI. Been quite a journey. What's next on our agenda?
The final part of our deep dive, we'll pull together some of those key takeaways from these videos and talk about how you can apply these insights to your own learning journey or your work in education.
I'm looking forward to that. Stay tuned as we wrap up our deep dive into the future of learning. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the future of learning. We've covered a lot, from design thinking and smart education to the rise of AI and all the ethical questions that come along with it. So where do we go from here?
Well, we've talked a lot about these big trends and challenges and the potential of it all, but I think it's helpful to kind of zoom in now and think about what this means for you, the listener.
Bring it back down to earth.
Yeah, whether you're a student, a teacher, or just, someone interested in the future of learning, what can you actually do with all these big ideas?
Okay, I like that. Getting practical.
Yeah.
So what stood out to you from these videos as like actual takeaways, things listeners can apply to their own lives?
One thing that really struck me was this emphasis on lifelong learning. It's not enough to just finish school and think you're done.
Right.
The world changes so fast that we all need to keep learning, adapting, evolving throughout our lives.
It's true. The only constant is change, right? But with so much information out there, where do you even begin?
That's where technology can really help. The videos show all these great platforms and tools that can help you personalize your learning journey, connect with mentors, and just stay on top of things in your field.
So instead of drowning in information overload, we can use technology to curate and personalize our learning.
Yeah.
Focus on what actually matters to us.
Exactly. And it's not just about gaining knowledge for the sake of it, right? It's about being able to use that knowledge to solve problems, create new things, make a difference in the world.
Yeah, it's not about filling our heads with facts. It's about being able to use those facts to do something meaningful. Speaking of which, another big takeaway from the videos was this idea that we can all be designing our own learning experiences. It's not just about passively absorbing information, it's about actively shaping the journey.
I love that. Taking ownership, being intentional about what you want to learn, the skills you want to develop, the impact you want to make.
We're all becoming design thinkers in a way, applying those principles of empathy, experimentation, trying things out to our own learning.
Exactly. And there are so many resources out there to help us. Online courses, workshops, mentoring programs, learning communities, you name it. You can design an experience that really fits your needs and goals.
It's pretty exciting, honestly.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Technology changes so fast, education's evolving. How do we keep up? Make sure we don't get left behind.
I think the most important thing is to just stay curious.
Curious.
Don't be afraid to experiment, try new things, explore new platforms, connect with other people who are excited about learning.
Embrace that growth mindset. Be open to new ideas. Learn from mistakes. Keep growing and evolving.
Exactly. And remember, learning isn't something you have to do alone. Connect with others, share ideas, work on projects together, support each other.
Community is so important, especially now when it's easy to feel isolated with everything happening online.
It really is, and I think that's one of the most powerful messages from these videos. The future of learning isn't just about technology or teaching methods, it's about people.
People.
It's about those human connections, empowering everyone to learn, and creating a world where everyone has the chance to reach their full potential.
I love that. What a great way to sum it all up.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some things listeners can do to help shape that future, to be a part of it?
The most important thing is to just stay engaged, curious, committed to lifelong learning. Keep experimenting, connect with other learners, and don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
Share what you learn with others. Mentor someone. Volunteer in your community. Just talk about these ideas with your friends, family, colleagues. Every little bit helps.
It all adds up. The future of learning isn't something that happens to us, it's something we create together.
So well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the future of learning. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even inspiring.
And remember, the learning never really stops. Keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep shaping that future one step at a time.